So, welcome everyone. This is part of our Community Champion series as part of the Alberta Mentorship Program. It's an initiative that started about four to 5 years ago with the goal to really support the capacity of organizations across Alberta to offer career mentorship as a support to transition, skilled, talented newcomers that are coming to our province to find career-worthy work. And so we're just really pleased that we're actually able to call on our speaker today, Moe Esmaeili. He's talking to us about career networking, so crucial to that process. And, Moe himself is a mentor in the ERIC Career Mentorship Program. So, and was enthusiastic when we asked for volunteers, was like, showed his community championness in saying, "Oh yes, I would love to do that." So just before we get started, I would like to just read a land acknowledgement and also our funder acknowledgement. So our initiative in this workshop is part of the Alberta Mentorship.ca initiative. And we're really grateful that AMP has made possible with the support of the government of Alberta. And Edmonton, where I guess AMP headquarters is located in Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands and Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 4. And we acknowledge this land as the traditional territories of many First Nations, such as the Nihaya Cree, Dene Solin or Dene, Nakote Sioux Stoney, Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, and Niitsitapi Blackfoot peoples. The city of Edmonton owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Edmonton home. And so without further ado, I'll turn this over to Moe, and feel free to bring your slides up.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Sharon, for doing that. And yes, let me go ahead and get started here. Can you see my screen? You should be seeing the slides, right?
Yes, it's good.
Okay, all right. So we gathered here together to talk about networking. It's not a very pleasant topic to talk about all the time, but I think it's necessary. And it's one of those things that everybody at some point in their life needs to start thinking about and finding out how to do and how to succeed in. To get this going, what I'm going to do, I'm going to section this into four topics that we want to talk about. We want to talk a little bit about why is it that networking is that important. You all heard about it. You all heard that, oh, most of the jobs don't even make it to the posting stage because they all get filled in beforehand and whatnot. So we're going to talk a little bit about why it is that it is so important, and then we're going to talk about the winning mindset that you should have in order to get yourself ahead of the game in the networking game. We're going to talk about a little bit of high level strategies as to what you can do to again, try to win this game, and finally some tactical tips as to when you're in a networking event, or you're at a event and it's the lunchtime, what can and cannot be done so that you can have the best chances of getting connected to those people that you need to. Now, before we get into the into the why of it, I want to say it is well, Cheryl asked a nerd to come here and talk about networking, so expect some math in here, because like, what am I if I don't? So we're gonna talk about the importance of networking here, and I'm gonna start with the story of Sammy. So I don't know how many of you know him, Sammy Kamkar. He's back in the early 2000s. This guy wrote one of the first computer worms, and don't worry, I I still know we are not talking about computer networking, but it's where it all starts. And so he writes this piece of code that basically in his MySpace page, and for the younger audiences here, MySpace was Facebook before Facebook was a thing. And for the ones who are also younger than those, Facebook was Instagram before Instagram was a thing. And from there on, I don't know anymore. There's so many after that. But this is one of those very first versions of social networks and social websites. And so he wrote a piece of code on his MySpace page that anybody who visited his page would have get his picture and a tagline added that to the end of their bio that says, "But above all, Sammy's my hero." And it was all fun, and he had fun with it for a while until he decided, hey, let me do a little more. So he tweaked the code in a way that if you visited his page, not only this tagline and his picture was copied to your page, but also the code itself. So that if I visited your page, now I also would get it. So this is one of those, again, early versions of the computer worms, right? And when he did that, all of a sudden, in span of about 18 hours, over 1 million account in MySpace had his face on it, which got him scared. He tried to take down his page, and then that took down the whole MySpace with it. He got convicted. He was ordered not to touch a computer for a while. He tells this story in a TED Talk somewhere. I have a link to that. I will make sure that you guys get access to that. This is a beautiful story to hear about computer worms. But why am I saying it here? Is because I think what this story tells us is not just a technical thing. Rather, it is talking about how we all are so connected. And and this is going back to that story of I guess many of you have heard the 6 degree of separation, right? Let's think about it this way. Show of hand, who in here knows 45 people? And I don't say good friends or what have you, just knowing 45 people on the first name basis, right? I can guarantee almost every one of you know 45 people. And imagine that uh, each one of them also, like you, at least knows 45 more people. And and each one of them and each one of them, and that's the 6 degree of separation. So with only 6 steps from you to the 6th degree, what happens is now you have access to 45 to the power of 6. That's 8.3 billion people. That is more than any living soul on the planet right now. So this idea of, oh, you're only 6 handshakes away from anybody in the world is has been something that humans have been fascinated with for a very long time. It all starts here. It all starts with this dude who writes a novel back in 1929 called Chains. And in the novel, one of the characters, they ask, one of the characters asks another one to to basically mail a piece of evidence to somebody else, and that whole chain that happens, that they are talking about that very beautiful story. If you want to read the novel itself, it's a little older, so the language may not be very fresh, but it's a great story to hear. But then again, that the idea, and this fascinated people from back in 1920s, and but there was no evidence around it. It was hard to come by to find evidence of this, and until we get to Stanley Milgram and he's a professor at Harvard University. He, a bunch of his students, they devised a program. They called it the small word experiment. It after that phenomenon when you meet someone, and I guess every single one of you have been in this situation before, that like after 2 3 minutes of talking, you both understand that you know somebody else, and you say, oh, what a small world, right? And so that's why the name. But so what they did, they had about 300 packages, and the goal was, and they gave these packages to 300 people, and the goal was for them to send it to one person, all of them. So they were trying to send all their packages to this one person in Chicago, I guess. And what happens is they say, but you can't really send it straight to him. You got to send it to someone who you know on a first name basis, and you think they have a better chance of of actually being able to get this to that other person. And so they do this, and out of these 300 packages that are out there, there is about 100 of them make it down there. So now you get that very first evidence of, oh, there is a way, there is a path between two people. And funny thing is, when they looked at the results, the packages that did make it, the average path for it was 5.2. And so now you have some real experimental evidence of the 6 degree of the separation. And oh yeah, that may be real. But then again, what happens after that? There is not a lot until Paul Erdős comes in, and this is now so there is a branch of mathematics around networks and nodes and the graphs and all. I'm not going to get into a lot of it, just so you know, there are two very important characteristics of a network. There is the path, and then there's the clustering, the degree of clustering. And there is a lot that goes into these studies. But what Paul Erdős does, he starts studying these random networks. And in these random networks, he figures that if you have high clustering, the paths are very, very long. But like if you have short paths, there's low level of clustering, meaning that imagine a bunch of buttons connected to each other with a little with threads. And so when you pick up one, how many of other buttons will come up with it? Let's think about it that way. And then he figures that if you do this and you have all these nodes connected, you just start randomly. So not randomly at the beginning, you have these big clusters, and then you start randomly adding some more threads to these buttons, if you will. As soon as you pass the average of one link per button, all of a sudden the clustering happens like almost across the whole network, which was very interesting. But matter of fact is that social networks are not completely random, meaning that it's not, I'm not as likely as knowing somebody here in Edmonton than I am to know someone that I don't know, works in a factory down in Mexico. So when you think about it, it's not really that random. So and social data back then was very hard to come by. And it went on until a bunch of these students they came together and they made this game 6 Degree of Kevin Bacon. I don't know if any of you ever played the game. It's very interesting though. How the game works is that you go on and you name one actor, and you and what they try to do is to connect that actor to Kevin Bacon using their co-stars all over the movies that they all been to. So the data out of this game, however, then picked the interest of Granivert, and this is in the 70s now. Now Granivert worked on a piece of paper that it's called the strength of weak ties. And so he looks at these social networks, and he figures that social networks they have this behavior of high clustering and short paths, which was a little weird, but when you think about it, it does make sense in the sense that so you and all your friends, you know each other, and they know you, and you almost know the same kind of people. But then you also have, say, um, another network down at work, right? And so now through you, your network can have access to that other group of people. So that's how the short path has come about. And you can see it here. There's like a lot of your um, friends, families, they all go around in your strong ties, friends, very good friends that you meet once a day or once a week or what have you, your family, all of those are down here in your strong ties. But you also know people outside of that, your coworkers or somebody who you meet today here in this event, or you've been to a trip to BC somewhere, and you got to know somebody there. So those weaker ties, and what he has found in this paper, and this is actually a very interesting paper to read if you're interested in these type of topics, is that he figures out that you are much more likely to find a job through these weak ties rather than your close friends and families. And reason for that, again, when you think about it, it does make sense in the sense that yeah, because again, your strong ties, you all know the same people, you have access to the same opportunities, you are all together all the time. Whereas these weak ties are the ones who give you access. Because remember, it's not about making buddies, it's about having access to the next cluster and the next cluster and the next cluster. And that's how you get access to these opportunities. So the theory of this 6 degree of separation, I guess, comes to sort of a halt in here, that you could see that there is actual evidence for it, as well as you could see how this works. I'm gonna, but yeah. So that's what I was gonna say about the theory and the nerdy stuff of it, and it's just because I love it so much. So I'm gonna stop right here before we jump on to the next stage of our talk, which has to do with the network. Cheryl, any comments, anything that the folks deposit their thoughts on in the chat?
Yeah, nothing so formal, but if you have a question or comment, like please raise your hand, or we're a fairly small group, so you could just
Yeah,
unmute and speak as well.
you're nothing. All right. So yeah, guys, try to keep this like a conversation. I love it. If you have something to add to it for everybody else, I'll learn as well as everybody else. That'd be awesome. So don't shy away if you want to say something, and go ahead. Like Cheryl said, it's a small group. Just unmute and say it. With that being said, let's move on to the mindset. Now, with the mindset, here's the idea. So networking has it's a feeling that if you ever tried going to a networking event, right, and you felt uncomfortable, you felt awkward and generally stressed, right? If you ever feel that feeling, you're not alone. It's everybody. Okay, it's not just you. It's everybody. And here's why: millions and millions of years of evolution in our DNA of every living thing, it has been engraved that as soon as you get into a situation that is not familiar, somebody you don't know, something you don't understand, uh, if you run away, you stay alive, right? And that has been the winning strategy for the longest time. And now we get to this new built society where that old habit is still engraved in all of us, but this the the stress there is kind of artificial now, is because you're not really in that grave of a danger when you see somebody new or somebody that you don't know from before. However, this is your natural reaction to it, to want to freeze or fight or flight, right? So it's always been there. That back and forth is always there, and it's always uncomfortable. It's not just you; it's basically everybody. And when you think about it, the way to get around this, let me put it this way: the way to get around this is to think. So you got to shift the mindset. Okay, so you're not there to meet someone new. You're there to meet the friend of a friend, right? Because remember, if you sit down with them long enough and talk to them long enough, 6 degree down to the most, you're gonna find somebody that you both know. So you're there to meet a friend of a friend, or of a friend, maybe. So it's not that bad when you think about it that way. And the other thing is that networking really, as I said at the beginning, is a long game. It's not about I'm going to go into this program. I'm going to go into this event. I'm going to find somebody. I'm going to ask them to, hey, do you have a job for me? Or hey, I need this or I need that, help me do something of this nature. It's not about that because it's a long-term game. So you want to start building a community, and that community on its own has its own value. By that, what I mean is that so this network, the value in a network is always greater than the sum of all its parts. All right, and that's that social capital that comes with your community. That being said, um, people, like I said, that you feel uncomfortable a little bit because you think you want to go ask for help, but that's not the issue here. If you just change the mindset and if you think about it in a sense that no, I am here to find another button and connect the thread to. And as soon as I do that, I have a weak tie, right? And more and more and more. And the more buttons you collect, the stronger your network gets. And the bigger and stronger that network gets, what happens? The value inside it goes more and more higher. And so that's how you should look at this. That is a long game. It's not about let's go there, let's find an opportunity to work with somebody. No, wait, if that happened, awesome, but that's not the goal. The goal is to build this community. And like I said, the other thing about it is that sometimes people think that when I go to these events and all these CEOs and all these big executives at the companies are there. What do I have to offer? Right. And sometimes it makes us feel a little uncomfortable as to what do I have to offer to that whole thing. And to that, I'm going to say something. Remember that, and I can guarantee this for you right here, right now, mathematically, that you are unique in the sense that you are the only person who knows everybody that you do. There is no other person in this world that knows everybody that you do. If you have a twin brother or sister who went everywhere with you other than today, now you know me and they don't. Right? So there is always, always, always that thought behind your head that you are unique in that sense. And so when you get to one of these events, what you bring with you is basically your network and the value inside of your network, right? You bring that value with you to an event and you start connecting people with each other. Um, so let me tell you this story. This is a good story. Back in back in about maybe 10, 15 years ago. So when I was 18 actually, so I'm a lot more than that. I got to meet a friend who with whom I'm still friend. His name is Sia. Very good guy, very talented musician. He writes his own music. He plays guitar. He plays all kinds of different instruments, and every time that we talked about his music and his work in the music world, one of the things he always said to me was that Mo, I write all these music. I don't have a good lyric to put on top of it. I cannot. I'm not good with the words. I just cannot get it going. And um, you may not believe it. Took me about a year and a half of these conversations to one day I was like, you know what? Yeah, I actually know this other guy, right? Midi, and he writes these beautiful poems that I think you can put music to, right? So I connected two of them together, and boy, oh boy, so many good things came out of that, right? Now, I'm not going to play none of it here because this is all in Persian, so you won't know. But what I mean by that is that, see that connection? So I'm going to take credit for everything they ever did together is because without me would have never happened, right? Because I was there and I was the genius who thought about, oh, these two together could actually make something incredible happen. And that is true for every single one of you, right? Every single one of you have your own network and you know the people that it's only you who know them. And you are able to build those connections between people. Even if you're sitting outside of it, you are able to make those connections between two other person that actually may end up being something great, right? So that's the value. If nothing else, you can take with you to a networking event or a conference or anywhere else that you are, you can always bring with you your network. And remember, with that, you keep adding buttons and you keep adding these buttons, and your network keeps getting bigger. And the bigger this network gets, like I said, the more value it has. So the next event you go to, you even have more value to take with you. And with every event that you go to, this can grow, and it grows on an exponential, remember, because each one of them knows 45 other people. So it does grow on an exponential. And before you know it, it takes off. And when the phase change happen and it starts taking off, there is no stopping it from there, right? So that's what I was going to mention about the mindset, that if we just look away from that uncomfortable feeling of I'm going to go ask for help, and what if I get rejected and get scared and get shut down, and look at it as, hey, if I'm going there to create a weak tie. Remember that picture that I showed you, right? So yes, that new person is a weak tie you create, but remember, you're also a weak tie in their network. Now, all of a sudden, all the value that you think you can get from them, they also can get from you. It's a give and take. It's a game of give and take, and these weak ties, like I said before, are the things that can add value to that network. With that being said, uh, one of the things that I figured, so to do this, to build this community, to add these buttons, if you will, to your network of buttons, um, one of the things I figured is that people tend to open up around food a lot more because you want to get to know them, right? Let me give you an example. I guess with the story I was telling you about the music, many of you figured that I do speak Persian, right? And now here's the thing. If someday you're sitting with a friend and they tell you, and I don't know in what scenario that may happen, but your friend tells you, oh, I have these documents in Persian, and I wish there was someone who could translate them to English, right? And you can say, oh, I know a guy, right? But then if we have this conversation more and more, and you get to know me more and more and more, like the next thing you'll probably figure is that, oh, he works in the world of data. So then another friend, if talks with you, and then you can say, oh, I know somebody who works in that field, right? And so it because every person is a bunch of layers, and you want to open it up, you want to learn about them. And the more you learn about them, the more value they bring to your network, right? So you got to get them open up. And like I said, people open up around food a lot more. But at the same time, you don't want to go to lunch with somebody you've never met before. Is because if the conversation don't take off, all of a sudden you have like 45 minutes on an uncomfortable silence around lunch, which you don't want to be in. Trust me, I've been in that situation. It is not fun. So I have figured that a cup of coffee is the perfect setting. Okay. And here's why. Um, if the conversation takes off, you could sit in Starbucks and talk about whatever you like around that one cup of coffee for hours and nobody says anything. And if the conversation doesn't take off, hey, it's $1.50 coffee. If you don't want to finish it, don't finish it. Get up, leave, right? So you could leave as early as a minute or two, or you could leave as late as 2 hours, and it all works. So I have figured out that coffee, in fact, is the perfect setting to get people to sit down, to open up, to get to know them. And then when you have that button in your network, you know a lot more about them. So you could actually use the value that they can bring to your network and create those connections. So, with that being said, I'm going to ask all of you here in this room today to do two things for me, okay? One, promise me during the session or after, invite one person that is in this room for a coffee, okay? And two, say yes to one coffee invite. Because that 1 week tie will get you started on an exponential growth of your network. Say yes to one coffee, invite one person to a coffee. Let's go. Let's see what happens. Because here's the thing. And for this one, I cannot mathematically guarantee, but I am pretty certain that every single one of you in this room knows someone that somebody else should know. Okay. And that connection is only apparent to you. It's not apparent to me or anybody else. Like I said, you are unique in the sense that that connection is only apparent to you, and it will never happen if you don't ask them out for that coffee. So let's do that. Let's see where the conversation takes us. That's what I was going to say about the mindset. So I'm going to, again, take a quick pause here, see if there's any comments, if anybody has anything to add, any questions.
Yes, and I would say, feel free to put that in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask a question. But maybe while people are thinking,
Hmm.
so Mo, first of all, I mean, I love that you're talking about networking, which is a person-to-person activity, kind of from a math perspective. I've never thought about viewing my value as the fact that I'm the only person who knows everybody I know and that there's nobody else on the planet, right? That I'm going to see how that changes my next networking conversation. But it does sound like in your next section is strategy. So maybe we're highlighting like this is when you're looking for a job, it's a very focused goal. You need to find a job. You're talking about this as like a long-term career strategy is what I'm
Yes.
hearing from you. Um, and so what do you say helps people maybe who don't have this habit, this kind of networking habit to actually reach out to the people they don't know, the weak ties? Because
Yeah.
again, like it's kind of turning on the head the idea that you really work with someone you know well to
Hmm.
get where you need to go, and you're saying no, you need to go to the weaker ties to find that. So it
Yes.
just curious about your perspective on that.
Yes, for sure. No, definitely. So again, going back to that idea of the weaker ties, when you think about it again, anybody that is in your strong uh, tie network is all your friends, all your coworkers, all your family, all of those type of people. Um, you tend to spend a lot of time together, so you tend to know the same kind of people and tend to have access to the same kind of opportunities, right? Uh, those weaker ties, and we'll get to it in a second in the strategies, but those weaker ties, really, what they give you, again, as I said, it's not about finding friends. It's not about becoming part of some other cluster of friends. No, it's about getting access. As long as you can get access, right? And that access will provide opportunity. And yes, you're right. I am talking about this in the sense that it is a long game. It's uh, not very likely. I'm not saying it's not happening, but it's not very likely that you go um, to a event, an industry event or whatever, and then you'll see somebody and you get to talk, and like in a minute or two, they come back and say, you know what, I was actually looking for somebody that looks exactly like you, and I want to hire you today. Right? It may happen. It's the best case scenario if it happens. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that's why like some people get discouraged. They do this once, twice, third time, and they get connected with 10, 20 people, and then a week later, nothing comes out of it, so they just let it go. And you kill those ties. And the moment that happens, you're back where you started, so you get discouraged and you say, hey, it's not working. What I'm saying is that you got to look at this in a longer term game. Yes, you may get some short wins out of it, but that's not the goal. The goal is to to build a career, right? So you don't want a job, you want a career. You want to have access to all these nodes in that network that gives you all the opportunities within the certain uh, industry, if you will, that long term you can never be out of job. Let's put it that way. When I first came to this country, at the breeding center, I had this one amazing mentor that was talking to me, and one of the things he told me was exactly that. He said the only permanent job you have in Canada is job search. Uh, do that all the time, but not on LinkedIn and on applying different jobs. Rather, you gotta connect yourself to as many people as you can in the industry that you want to work in, so that when the opportunity comes up, you're the first to know, if that makes sense. Okay. Anybody else wanted to add anything about what we discussed so far?
Mom, I want to just add something there. I
Yes.
think networking as another, like that, every other kind of activity needs to have at the first initiative steps, and it should be set a goal for yourself. You cannot go like that wildly to the older people and trying to do the networking, see everyone in the street, say, hi, can I have a coffee with you? I think it's not gonna work like this. You need to set a goal for yourself and clear your area, your target. Well, what kind of industry you want to focus on, what kind of people that you want to focus on, and go for that. This is what I think about it, and I think it's my point.
So that's a good point. And setting a goal when we get to the tactics, we're going to talk about that a little as well. But, um, I want to kind of disagree with that second point that you're bringing up. That is, you don't want to go out and just see somebody random and ask them out for a coffee. I mean, you may sound like a moron if you do that, but at the same time, every person, like I said, is think about it as an onion, and it's all these layers in it, right? You never know. I once was at the dog park, and some guy just walked to me, and we started chatting. Turned out that his question was, how come all these dogs are off the leash? And I started telling him how the off-leash area works. And we talked a little bit, and 10 minutes in, turned out, oh, he is also a data professional like me, and he is new to the city, and he's looking for an opportunity to be able to, prove himself to some company or whatever. Well, I didn't end up helping him, but he's now in my network. Listen, he built the connection, right? And that just happened at the dog park. Yeah, it was not over a coffee, but I mean, every person is its own ward and has its own network. So if you look at it that way, any person that gets added to your connection could be a valuable asset sometime down the road. Okay. Devinder, hi. Your hands up. You want to say something?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was a really good insights from your presentation. I have a question like, if you are in the organization and like if you're working, so you want to build a relationship or with your higher hierarchy in the organization. So what would be the good approach for that? Because sometimes people often scared to approach the higher managers
Mm-hmm.
or they hesitate, would be the right word. So how would the approach would be?
That's a great question. So, first thing I want to bring up to that is that Cheryl and the team here, they have another session on intercultural communications, if I'm not mistaken, right, Cheryl? Right. That be some of the things you want to discuss in there, because I have a lot to say about it, but this is not the place to talk about it. It is very important though to remember that regardless of the position they have in your company, right? As long as you know them, as far as networking is concerned, you know them, so they are in your network. So you could somehow reach out, like you have an email address, you're okay, right? But to build that stronger tie that you're talking about, to make it a little stronger, we'll get to that in a second in my strategies, and I'm gonna talk to that in a second here. But it's all about layers. You got to bring layers to your relationships, and that's actually a good segue. Let me move on, because I think Sharon, how are we doing time wise? Just a quick time check.
So we're about 18 minutes to the top of the hour.
Okay, so 18 minutes left.
Yeah, and well, no, we go right until 11:15
Okay.
Mountain Time. So yeah, you're good for time.
Okay, good. All right, so let me move on to the strategies because what Devinder was talking about actually is one of the things I actually wanted to say here. So, strategies for networking. Okay, so let's we've been talking a lot of theories so far, but let's get a little more practical. What can be done, right? Where do I start? You may think to yourself, yeah, you know what, Mo, you talked enough, you sold me on it. I want to do it. Where do I start, right? First thing that I always say and I think there's a lot of value in it, is to meet an old friend. Okay. Uh, and again, many of us have that friend or handful of friends from back in the high school that you somehow lost touch with, right? You know them, they are at the bottom of your contact list, but you know them, but you just lost touch with. And what happens is these people, you grow apart, and these guys, they end up in a different industry, maybe a different geography. They end up in a whole separate world from yours, and they end up with their own network on the other side other than yours. When you reach out to them, they actually have every benefit that a weak tie that's an stranger will have for you, right? That's the access to the next network in the next industry or the next geography or what have you. But then they are not as scary, right? Because you know them. You already know them. You've been friends. So it's a very good idea to, if you want to start there. Start finding some of your older friends, the ones that you lost touch with. And hey, the good thing is you're not selling them anything on an MLM, right? So it's not like you're going to call them and be like, oh, here, I'm going to sell you some gold. We're going to do this together, or I'm going to sell you beauty products. So it's not a marketing scheme. So you want to reach out, you want to go get a coffee, you want to see what happens, where they are in their life, what are they doing. And like I said, because you've grown apart, they give you all that benefit that you get from a stranger without all the stress of meeting a stranger, because this is now a familiar face. So that's one of the better strategies that you can start with. And when you do, again, now you get access. So what happens is, the next thing that Devinder maybe talks to the point you were bringing up is to change your work friends to friends. Okay, so by that, what I mean is that layers. Okay, so again, many of us probably you worked somewhere before, and there's this one guy that you always go out for lunch with, or you always sit together in the cafeteria and laugh about stuff and talk a lot, and you feel like they are your good buddy. And then what happens is the moment they left the company or you leave the company, all of a sudden, that's it. You don't hear of them anymore, right? I had a very good friend. His name was Atil. Him and I, back in the old company that I used to work, oh, the two of us were spending every lunchtime together. And the moment I left, all of a sudden, that whole thing was gone. And here's why. Because the only thing that connects the two of us is that office, right? But if you start building layers, layer upon layer of connection with that person, if one goes away, there is the other four to keep you two connected, right? So you were talking about how to get to build these networks with the higher ups in the company or what have you, right? It's all about layers. Know how many kids they have. Know what's important to them, right? You want to build a second layer of connection to me. Talk to me about dogs, right? I cannot shut up about dogs. I can go all day long. So you got to find out what's important to them, right? And talk to them about that, and build the layers. The third layer, the fourth layer, the fifth layer. The more you do, maybe they love hockey. Right? Go talk about hockey. By the way, if anybody's in this room that is new to Canada, go learn something about hockey, because that's one of the things you can talk to almost anybody about, and they always have some kind of opinion. And you don't want to embarrass yourself like me, that I when I first started trying to do this, and I cheered for Calgary Frames right here in Edmonton. That was not fun, and I didn't know the teams. But anyway, try to build those layers, and those layers will help you make stronger connections. And like I said, if one of them goes away, the rest are there to keep you. And lastly, the third and one of the better strategies that I was talking about that goes back to that whole thing that we started with, that is the 6 handshakes away from the Queen of England, is going back here, right? Meet friends through your friends. So find new friends through your friends, meaning that ask them to make a connection. Ask somebody to make a connection to someone you don't. And then that's how you grow your network. These are some of the easier strategies you can pick up and work with to be able to grow your network. And again, if there is your friend in there and they are making that connection, it's just that much more easier to connect with someone when there is a familiar face around both of you. Because remember, as much as it's stressful for you, it is also stressful for the other party, right? To them also, you're a stranger that they're trying to connect to. So you gotta always look at it from the other perspective. And as soon as you do, it calms you down a little. So these are the strategies I wanted to talk about. So then again, meet an old friend, right? To get all the benefits without the stress. Change your work friends to your good friends, and that's building layers in your connections. And then the third one is that to meet people through your friends. Then again, one of your friends wanted to get started in their BI career, and right now you know someone who does that, so you can connect them to this guy so that he can help them out, right? So that's how you get that going and make it bigger. So those are the strategies I came up with. Anybody here has any other strategy that they want to add to? Anything you tried and worked before? Oh,
Hi, Mo. I'll jump
hello.
in. I'm
Okay,
Annette.
Annette.
I work with AMP and Cheryl, but
Mhm.
I really liked your point about not underestimating those casual encounters and the people that you don't like. You just can any opportunity. I run my own business. I do communications and writing. So if anyone wants coffee and talk about that, just let me know. Intercultural communications too. But I have been in so many situations where you meet someone in a place where, like you said, the dog park or a coffee or on a ski lift, and you start talking to someone, and sometimes it's just you talk and have an interesting conversation, but sometimes you actually find those connections that help you personally or professionally. Or I've turned seeing someone in a play commenting on their Instagram, and then her and I, she was an actor in the play, and we got along on the social media, and we went for a coffee after, and now we have like sort of a casual acquaintance where we check in on each other, and I'll go see her in other plays. And it's just, not everything necessarily professionally adds up, but I really appreciate the sometimes you're kind of always networking, and sometimes those sort of connections are easier than the formal ones. And I really appreciate what you're saying there, because sometimes you forget uh just to be a little open. um and yeah, so
No,
that's cool.
100%. I cannot agree with that more. Definitely, uh, it's a great point you're bringing up. I used to say networking is not something you do, right? It's just
Yeah.
part of your life. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna go now do networking. That's not how that works. It's a mindset that you want to have, that I am here, I am building my community. The more the merrier, right? The
Hmm.
more the merrier. And like I said, every person is like an onion. There's a bunch of layers
Hmm.
to it. And yes, you may connect on the first layer, but then when you dig more, there are a lot more opportunities that comes out of that, right? Let me so if there's a great story um, about meeting that old friend. Now I will find a link to that video that I once saw, and I share it with the room here. But um, WWE, the World Wrestling Entertainment.
Mhm.
Now, I don't watch it, but I hear the brand worth like billions of dollars, and it's this huge brand. And the whole thing started because these two friends who lost touch from high school, after about 10 years, they met at a high school reunion. And you got to read the story, beautiful story. The two of them sit down at the table, started talking. One of them is in sports, the other is running a sport book, and they figure, hey, we can do something together, and that starts the WWE. That becomes what you see today. Something great comes out of the fact that these two old friends just happen to connect. And like I said, because they've grown apart a little, their words is now so much different that bringing it together all of a sudden makes all the difference. So yeah, definitely 100% agreeing with you in that. It's something that you do all the time.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat that, sort of follow thread. So thanks to Vinder, how do it identify that you're not over asking someone? And then Khalid, asking, it's stressful for both parties. So how do you create interest in the other party to accept the same effort? And
Right.
I'll comment, Mo, like you're absolutely coming from a place of generosity and sort of abundance of time and time to connect. And I would say that's my own experience, just to bank on their questions. You can approach people with that openness, and they just don't meet you. And so how, what are your recommendations about how to kind of work with, like, kind of getting a cold
Mhm.
response back?
Yeah, okay. So that actually is a very good point. Very good point that yeah, that may happen, right? Yes, I keep talking about how great it is, but it very, very well may happen that you go meet somebody and remember, so I see that the question there was that how do I know that I'm not over asking, right? And what I say is that you're not asking for anything, right? You're there, you're there and you say, "Hey, I am interested in you. Tell me about you." Right? And that's all. And that is never over asking. People love to talk about themselves given the opportunity. Okay. Look at me. I'm standing here telling you my life story already. So people love to talk about themselves given the opportunity. And you're definitely not asking about for anything. You're just asking for, hey, tell me about you. Let me get to know you. And that's how you make a connection, right? You think about it and you see how you fit in that world and in their world. And as soon as you find that, it's click. And hey, sometimes it may not, right? And that's why I said, don't go for lunch, go for a coffee. Because if that didn't happen, you have an out. You have a very easy out. Hey, this was interesting. Thank you so much. Let's talk later, and then just walk out, right? So, and that fear of rejection, I get it. It's an uncomfortable feeling, right? It's an uncomfortable feeling that you put the effort in and they don't meet you halfway, right? And sometimes it can be discouraging, but remember, it's their loss too, right? If they don't put the effort in, they are losing because again, you're bringing your network and you're giving them, you're allowing them access to your network. And if they don't want it, they're lost, right? You move on to the next one. Why not? Does that make sense? Did that answer the question? Khalid, I guess it was Khalid who asked. Okay. All right. So,
Can I
yes.
can I
Yeah,
add
sure.
one strategy there for
Mm-hmm.
everyone? I think turning the bad experience to the good networking is also work sometimes. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, if you had the opportunity to talk to one company as the recruiter talk to you or HR talk to you or management talk to you, and by any reason you couldn't get the job, ask them to say connect with you, say having the conversation, and ask them like be connect in a LinkedIn, have a coffee after months, and give you the feedback about what was wrong there and how you can improve them. Then you can, if you just let them talk Let them to explain themselves and the decision, because getting the hard decision like that, recruiting someone or rejecting someone, is a hard decision, and it's put a lot of stress in a person that in a decision situation, in decision position, making decision. And so if you let them talk about them and then use this opportunity to make your network and make it bigger, it would be helpful for, I think, for everyone that wants to work on their network.
That is an interesting point of view for sure. Yes, I do agree with that. Um, I say every time you put the effort in and you got to know someone, you got to keep that connection, right? Be it that recruiter who didn't give you the job, still fine. It's a new person in your network, right? Maybe that recruiter in your network who didn't give you the job, because he's recruiting for some industry that you're not working in. But maybe I have somebody in my network who does, and now all of a sudden I have this new connection to build. I have a new node in my network, if you will, that I can connect all the rest of my network to and build value both ways. Because remember, that recruiter also has a job to do, which is filling in the position. And hey, if I can help that recruiter to fill the position, I helped a friend get a job and I helped her fill position. Why not? Right. Okay, moving on. So strategies are, like I said, a little high level, but the next thing I want to talk about is, of course, the tactical tips, right? So we talked about why is it important? We talked about what the mindset should be. We came a little down. We talked about the strategies, and now let's get on the ground. And these tactics I want to talk about, guys, these all goes back to these industry events that you go to, or like the place I was last night, the Alberta Machine Learning Meetup or something, right? Many of those events are around that you go uh, in a bar and meet with a bunch of people with a shared interest, whatever that may be. Sometimes it's bikers, sometimes it's machine learning experts, whatever. But these tactical tips comes down mostly to those events, and when you're at a conference and then you come out for lunch. To me, that's the most important part of the conference. But these are applicable more in that setting. So let's talk about them a little bit. And the first thing I want to say is always go with the goal, of course, right? Write down your goal, and we've been talking about goal setting just a little before as well. So uh, make yourself go in there with a goal. And I cannot stress, and there is a ton of literature around this that you can research and read about goal setting. The moment you write it down in a paper, doesn't matter what it is and doesn't matter what you do with the paper later, just throw it out afterwards. Just write it down on a paper. You're 70% more likely to hit your goal. So let's do that. Go with the goal. I am going to this event with the goal of getting 5 people added to my LinkedIn profile. Maybe, right? I am going in here with the goal of getting 2 people's phone number, whatever makes sense in that event for you. But go always with the goal. And when you have that goal and when you write it down, that motivates you to work a little more towards it. So that's my first tactical tip for you. Second thing is that take the first step. Okay. Again, I would like to stress this, that that is uncomfortable. This thing that to take that first step, as much as it's uncomfortable for you, it's probably uncomfortable for many other people around. So people tend to stay on a corner and wait for somebody to come to them, right? Don't do that to yourself, because you may end up with no connection, or you may end up with the wrong connection. You want to walk around, you want to look at people in the eye, you want to start the conversation with people with whom you think a connection is good. And I hear this a lot. That is very scary to do, to just walk into a stranger and say hi, right? 2 things I want to say. One, always think about the benefits versus the risk. Okay, what's the worst that can happen if you walk to somebody and say hi? They'll just turn around and don't say hi back. Can't get any worse than that, right? Or the best thing that can happen, like I said, is that, oh, they actually were looking for you. They wanted to hire you right there. Right? So just weigh the benefits. Weigh the benefits against the risk. How much of a risk you're taking. That's one thing. Second thing is that, okay, I want to do it. I don't know how. Here's the golden thing. I've tried this a bunch of times, guys, and always got something good out of it. So I'm gonna share this tip with you. Uh, in these kind of events when you go, because it's always that very, very first sentence that causes all this stress and the anxiety and that inhibits you from going in and talking to someone, right? Look around, lock eyes, nod, and say, "Hey, you're here for the event?" Right? And that's it. And all of a sudden, it all starts, right? Hi, you're here for the event? Oh, yeah, I am. Oh, did you happen to catch so and so's talk? Right? If they say yes, great. What did you think about it? And now you opened it up. Remember, your goal is to get to an open-ended question to get them to talk, right? So you start with, hey, you're here for the event. That's a yes/no question, right? Did you happen to catch whoever's keynote speech? Yes, no question. If yes, then you get them to talk. What did you think about whatever point he made? If no, you say, oh, he made the point, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I think. And all of a sudden, it all starts from there. So you could literally, with just are you here for the event, which 99% of the time it's a yes, right? You could get yourself going. This always works, guys. It's just magical how great this works, and I suggest you try it. So always take that first step. Try to find the person that you want to have the connection to, and do that. Three, don't be negative. This happens. I am guilty of it many times. I have done this before. You go to an event, you feel uncomfortable, you stand on the corner with the plate of your snacks, right? And you say, "Oh, this event sucks. I don't want to be here," right? And hey, worse than that, somebody else hears you, and they also think the same. So the two of you stay on the corner, in a corner, and just talk about how this event is not good all day long, right? And that just inhibits you from getting to your goals. It's off-putting. It's not nice. Don't do it. Just don't be negative. Go in there with a goal and try your best to do to achieve your goal, right? Avoid that at all costs. Next thing I want to talk about is to get out of your comfort zone. So sometimes it does happen that when you're at the event and you meet somebody and the conversation takes off and it's just sparkling and the two of you having the best time, right? And you're now tempted to stay with them for the whole day, for the whole event. It's because it's comfortable, it's great. You want to build that connection as strong as you can. But remember, you're not there to build buddies. You're not there to make friends. You're not there to make a very strong connection with someone. No, you had to go. You were there to get 5 new connections. This maybe is the first one. You don't need to make it that much deeper. One of the things I always say, hey, it was lovely meeting you, but I don't want to stop you from meeting other people, right? So how about give me your number. I'll reach out. We'll go for a coffee. We'll pick it up from there. I loved what we are talking about. We'll pick it up from there around the coffee, right? And that actually is, by the way, a great way to leave somebody. But always get out of that comfort zone. Don't let it because this one would felt so good. And we all fit into this trap of, oh, so now that the conversation going so well, the more I stay here, the more likely I am to get a job from this person. No, that person has the same opportunities regardless of how strong your ties are at the beginning. So let's make sure you're not staying there. Five is to remember that connection is a give and take, right? And I kept talking about it a little while before too. Um, it's a give and take. So you have to focus on, hey, what can I give to begin with, and then you can ask. So because if you did offer something at the beginning, taking something back will be a lot easier. So focus on what you can add to the conversation, to the network, or whatever else, right? Next thing is to offer to connect them with someone. Right. Again, another thing that I said, and that is the fact that, like I said before, it's your greatest asset, right? And if you offer to connect somebody to somebody else, uh, believe me, both of them will be very, very thankful, because it is hard for them to do that on their own. And imagine how good it feels if somebody brought somebody to you and said, "Hey, I want you guys to meet," right? How good that feels, and you do that for two people. So offer to connect them to somebody else that you just met there or you know from before. That, by the way, again, another great way to leave somebody, to leave them in somebody else's hand, and they both will be thankful for your help. Next thing is be curious. Oh, excuse me. Be genuinely curious. Build layers, right? This goes back to your second strategy. Ask about them, and don't ask what you do. Ask about their hobbies. Ask about what they like. Build these connections in different layers. Be genuinely curious. The more curious you are, the more you know about the other person, the more likely you are to find that point that you and your unique set of skills can fit in their world. Number 8, I wanted to say, is to keep the conversation going. Okay. So again, people love to talk, and but the thing is, the conversation is like a game of ping pong or table tennis. I don't know what that's called. Uh, to me, sport is football, and by football I mean soccer. So the one that is actually with the foot. But the game, the conversation is a back and forth, right? And one of the things that you can ask, psychiatrists will tell you this a lot, is to try to match the other person's um, style and speed. Okay, if they take 30 seconds to answer a question, you want to answer the next question in 30 seconds and ask the next. If they take 2 minutes, you want to do the same, right? If they talk fast, you want to do the same. If they talk a little slower, do that. If you mimic their word, there is a better chance of connecting to them. They feel more familiar if you mimic their traits. So keep the conversation going. Back and forth. Don't. You're not there to give a speech. You're not there to hear somebody else talk. You're there to have a conversation. So let's make sure that we keep it that way. 9, keep moving. And this again somehow goes back to that very first one that I was talking about. Keep moving. Go around. Don't this table has the best food, so I'm gonna stay here. That's not your best strategy, right? Yeah, you may get to eat the good food, but it's gonna keep you away from your goal. So you want to walk around. You want to make sure that you lock eyes with as many people as you can, and nod. And sometimes the moment you get into their space, right, 2 meter, 3 meter in, hey, you're here for the event, and all of a sudden something new and magical is about to start. So keep moving around the room. Number 10, make the conversation memorable. Okay, and so this is a biggie. And so let me tell you this. There is again a ton of research around this that you could read about. But unlike popular belief, people don't remember things like a movie. Okay, people remember things like a photo album. There's a bunch of photos that they remember. Now, the research suggests that the photos that people tend to remember the most, and you can think about the last vacation you've been to, probably it's the same thing, is a little bit at the beginning. Then there is the photos of the highly charged emotional uh, situations, high stress, high curiosity, any kind of emotion, high emotionally charged moments, and then there's the end, right? You always remember the end. If the end of the vacation was not good when you get back home, you don't even remember the whole thing. You don't want to even think about it. Doesn't matter how much fun you had before that. So conversation, same thing. People remember the 3 points, right? So at the beginning, great smile and firm handshake, right? Try to create that one moment of pure joy or surprise or something. Try to create a moment that is emotionally charged, and finally leave on a good note. And one of the best notes you can leave on, like I said, is to offer to connect them to somebody else. So try to make the conversation memorable with those 3 points. And lastly, find a way to enjoy yourself. Okay, it's not a comfortable situation to be in, and it's not. And as I said at the beginning, it's not just you. Everybody's that uncomfortable, but you want to find a way to enjoy the process. You're there to grow your network. Think about your network. Think about how good it feels in a couple months when you did this 10 more times, that your network went from 6 to 8.6 billion people, and now you can connect anybody to anybody in the world that you like, right? Not saying that's going to happen, but what I mean is that think about the bigger picture, find a way to enjoy yourself. And lastly, something that I didn't put in these slides but I wanted to say is that sometimes you have to force it. Okay, and I know that this comes back to the job market, and sometimes, guys, you just have to force it. If everything else fails, and and you have to do something, just force it. Okay, and by that, what I mean is that, so um when I first came to Canada, let me tell you this story. When I first came to Canada, it was this one company I really wanted to work for, and I kept applying online. Nobody ever got back to me, and it was this whole back and forth of, I guess many of you have seen that cycle before. You apply, they don't answer. You apply, they don't answer, and then you get discouraged and frustrated. And hey, I was about this to do the same, to just let it go. But I tried finding someone in there to, to make a connection to, and then try to network my way in. That also failed. Could not get connected to anybody to that company, in that company. And finally, what happened is, one day I was like, you know what do I have to lose? Right? So I forced it. I walked into their office 8 in the morning, and I said, hey, I'm here to see HR. And the woman at the front desk, she said, you have an appointment? I said, no, I'm just here to see someone from HR. And so they brought in somebody, which later on I figured was the VP of HR, because apparently nobody else was there that early in the morning, right? So I got to talk to him, like, listen, you need me here, you just don't know it yet, right? Find me a position in your company. And mind you, I got the job. I stayed there for 6 years. It was amazing. We grew. I grew, the company grew with me. It was just amazing. And all of that happens because, like I said, sometimes if all else fails, you have to just force it. And don't be afraid, because you've got nothing to lose. Because remember, in my story, I went in there and I said, I'm here to see somebody from HR. Worst that could happen, they say no. I come back. I am no worse than where I was like a minute before that, right? So there is no risk to it. You're not going to be any worse than where you are. So force it. Sometimes, like I said, you have to do that. That being said, just for review, and I'm sorry for my throat. Let me just get some water here. So this is what we talked about. We talked a little about the nerdy stuff and the math stuff as to why you should network. We talked a little about the mindset, the winning mindset that helps you get there. We talked about the strategies, the 3 big strategies of meet your old friends, make your work friends your friends' friends, and meet new friends through your friends. And finally, we went through some tactical tips here as to things that you can do while you're on that event. We talked a lot about coffee. So I would love to get a coffee. If you guys started on that promise that you made me that you're gonna invite somebody to the coffee, hey, don't count me out. I will say yes. I promise. And so let's get a coffee. Let's see where the conversation take us. And that may be the first step to practice this with me or somebody else in this room, and then you can take it from there. Any questions, anything else you might want to bring up? I'm going to leave this up here so you can all write it down, because I know you all want to connect with me as much as I do want to connect with you. So.
So yeah, just as if people give people a minute to formulate any last minute questions. Thank you so much, Mo, like for taking what for many people, especially if you're not an extrovert, is a very daunting career building strategy, and offering us some really practical ways to kind of dial back the threat of that or the challenge. I really appreciate that. But yeah, we'll just check in to see if anybody has a last minute question or comment. And, I'll just comment too, you're really walking the talk of showing how to position yourself as available. I think about, I think it was Khalid's comment, about like, how do you create interest in the other party to accept to
Mhm.
do the same with the same effort? And, what I heard from you is people won't necessarily, but you have a quality of I would call it social infectiousness in a positive way to sort of say, here I am and let's connect. And so I appreciate also you modeling that in our session.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, for sure, definitely. And like I said, if people don't want to meet you halfway, those are not the people you want in your network to begin with. So, all right.
All right.
I guess that's all I had today, guys. And thank you again, all of you, to take the time for being here, for listening to me all this time talking about myself. Like I said, people love to do that. I'm no exception.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mo, and thanks everyone for coming.